Okay, if everyone would please be seated. We do have a time restraint on one of our very important presenters. Is this our second meeting? Are we ready to call the roll? The second meeting of the Transportation Budget Subcommittee is now beginning, and will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Storm, Senator Turner, Senator Wilson, Senator Yates, Representative Bridges, Representative Fugit, Representative Heverin, Representative Huff.
Here.
Representative McPherson, Representative Pratt, Representative Roberts, Representative Stevenson, Senator McDaniel, Representative Petrie, Representative Reed, Representative Upchurch, Co-Chair Higdon, Chair Santoro.
Here. And we do have a quorum. What we need first is a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
We have second. The minutes are approved. No, if there's no corrections. If not, because we have time limits, if I could get the first presenter, which will be the secretary, and I don't know who else is coming up with him. Senator Higdon, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. And yesterday, Secretary Gray, you were here about the same spot and almost the same time. And we when we visited with you, you were kind enough to take us with you on a tour of Eastern Kentucky, which was very eye-opening, and I'm certainly glad that Representative Santoro and myself were blessed to be able to do that and to see firsthand the destruction. But as I wanted to be very kind with a nickname that I heard about that, and I think I'm not sure that Representative Santoro might have been one of the ones that coined that phrase, but anyway, the master of disaster. And I just want to commend you, Mr. Secretary. Since you've been in your position, the Ben Spence Bridge, and then the Western Kentucky catastrophe, and now the Eastern Kentucky floods. Just want to commend you on your leadership, and like I said, I was there and saw firsthand the work that you were doing, and the green light that you were giving your folks, and the army of State Department of Transportation vehicles and manpower that you had brought to the area. And again, I just want to thank you personally. Thank you, and like I said, I kind of like the nickname. That kind of and so I know we say, and I'm not saying that jokingly. I mean it. You've have faced more than your share of disasters, and you've handled yourself well, showed true leadership. So, and it takes a team. I know, and you have a bunch of them with you today, and hopefully we'll hear from all of them. So again, thank you, and welcome to the committee meeting this morning.
Thank you, sir.
You can throw some knives at him if you like. It doesn't matter when, but if you would please, you guys are doing a great job for us. If you would just introduce yourselves for the record.
Yes, sir.
We know who you are, and then proceed. I know you have some time restraints.
I'm Jim Gray, Transportation Secretary, and I'm accompanied here by a fellow that everybody here I know knows well because he does such a great job with what he does, and that's Kenny Bishop as our legislative liaison. And as Senator Higdon said, we've got an incredible bunch of people with extraordinary muscle and strength in this transportation cabinet, and that's a legacy that goes back scores of years. And Deputy Secretary, former Secretary Mike Hancock is with us today, and our state highway engineer James Ballinger is with us today, and Bobby Joe Lewis, our Commissioner of Rural and Municipal Aid, is with us today. Yesterday we had Corbett Caudle, who is our Chief District Engineer in 10, and Corbett, does a great job of speaking from the heart and from the head. But we decided that he needed to be back, boots on the ground today, back home in Jackson, and where the district office, of course, is. And I do appreciate the comments and the acknowledgement, Senator. I also want to say, in full fairness and with full conviction in what I'm saying, that we have a governor who is absolutely committed to these recovery projects. And I say routinely that I wasn't used to having a boss before this much in my life or my career, and I got accustomed to it, and he keeps us on our toes, and that's a good thing. And I say that with great conviction and appreciation for the leadership that Governor Beshear provides. I know that some of you all were here yesterday, and much of what I'm presenting today are the same slides. And I'm hopeful that second time around, retention is greater. Was that Representative Stevenson? Oh, listen, that also is from the heart. We know. But I do want to say right out of the gate that I'm so proud. Senator Higdon, Chair Higdon, co-chair, you said it well, but about the competence and the commitment of the people on the ground. One of my slides tells the story of how many in the Transportation Cabinet alone, the Department of Highways and others supporting this project, and we'll come back to that. I also want to say that across the administration, there are so many cabinets actually working collaboratively, cooperatively. We actually have a daily routine meeting to catch up, update, plan ahead every day at 4 o'clock. And that's among all the cabinet leadership. And then not just the cabinet leadership, but the senior folks in each of the cabinets who are committed to the project. Yes, transportation has a big role, but of course couldn't be there without Kentucky Emergency Management and Director Slinker doing an extraordinary job as well in the leadership that he's providing. So I just want to say that because there's no I in teamwork, and we're all working together on this. I'll have a slide that illustrates, and Senator, you mentioned it, that you were at a week ago Friday on site along with Chairman Santoro. And then I was in Neon and ran into Senator Turner, who was there with his equipment and people that were working with him, and illustrating so well that neighbors helping neighbors, people helping others, families coming together, churches, so many working together, which is really is, in many respects, someone said, we're getting a lot of, regrettably, we're getting a lot of practice at dealing with these really troubling and challenging conditions and situations. And I will speak to some of that because some of that experience has inured to our benefit in the last 2 weeks. Some of the experience from Western Kentucky has inured to our benefit in the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to jump right into the presentation. I will say that there was one thing that I mentioned yesterday that I want to say in tribute to the to those employees of the Transportation Cabinet Department of Highways. 16 of our employees actually lost their own homes. Their homes were flooded. They didn't have a full loss, but they lost so much of their possessions. At least one had his home washed away completely. And yet they all went right to work. They all went right to work. And I'll talk about that and the folks that came around from all over the state to help in just a minute when we get to the slide. All right. Kenny, if you'll go to the first slide. Yeah. So I said it yesterday. I'll say it again today. It's been all hands on deck. From the point of view of the Transportation Cabinet, that's included the Department of Highways, Department of Vehicle Regulation, Department of Rural and Municipal Aid, Aviation, State Highway Engineer's Office, the Secretary's Office of Safety. I want to give a shout out to John Moore, who was here yesterday. He is Assistant State Highway Engineer, works in the office with James Ballinger. And John is the project manager for transportation. He's been at the Emergency Operations Center almost daily, if not daily. And we get updates from him all the way to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Daily updates from John. And we have a daily call within the Transportation Cabinet itself at 5 o'clock. So after we have the 4 o'clock meeting with the Cabinet Secretaries, we have a 5 o'clock, or our Cabinet has a 5 o'clock internal meeting. More, when this slide was created for you all a little bit ahead of time, of course, characterize it as we have at least 180 Department of Highway personnel from Districts 1 through 9. That number is over 200 now that have been deployed to Eastern Kentucky to support Districts 10, 11, and 12. And in 10, 11, and 12, there are 860 employees. So you put that together, and more than 1,000 of the 3,400 employees of the Department of Highways have been almost directly and exclusively focused on, turned their attention to the recovery efforts. More volunteered and are on standby. Now, I want to also point out that more than 391,000 miles have been logged and 91,000 hours of engine activity within the designated disaster area from July the 28th to August the 9th. The personnel, next slide, Kenny. The personnel has included engineers, equipment operators, entire maintenance crews, bridge specialists, inspecting as many as 1,100 structures, and mechanics. The equipment that has been brought to the effort has included backhoes and dump trucks and semi-tractors. Senator Turner, you said yesterday you could hardly go down the road without seeing some of the Department of Highway equipment. Excavators, skid steers, pavers, rollers, culvert cleaner, and sign truck with a post driver. Personnel were instrumental in transporting critical goods and water. Critical goods that included water, meals ready to eat, cots, travel trailers for shelter, and work trailers. The travel trailers is a key piece of the both lessons learned and from the tornado, as well as having those travel trailers available for us. This is a story that I wanted to share. We had the need at the opening of Buckhorn Lake State Park. There was of course, didn't have water, and tanker trucks of water were brought. This was essential, of course, to use this as a shelter, and 3 tankers were brought. We repaired the road to get to the park. We had to repair that first, and then the work was being done to connect the tankers to the facilities at the lodge, and they were missing a valve that couldn't find anywhere. The nearest location was in Nashville, and the Transportation Cabinet has a couple of aircraft, and we were able to dispatch one of the planes to actually get that valve in Nashville and bring it, and we saved about a day by doing it that way. Another important piece of the work of the cabinet has been the pop-up licensing services. Of course, we've got our regional offices in Pikeville and Jackson, but we added 6 locations. We have added locations, pop-up locations. As of yesterday, we have issued 1,921 licenses and IDs to folks that were in flooded counties, many of whom lost everything. I've been on site myself 8 days, and I was there when we had the pop-up at the Sportsplex just outside of Heinemann, and I was witness to seeing our folks who were quickly dispatched and quickly agreed to setting up these licensing offices, along with the consolidated services where FEMA is also located. So KYTC crews have not only been working on clearing state routes, but also in helping overwhelmed counties clear local roads right out of the gate. And Representative Santoro and Senator Higdon were there when Corbett was talking about it in Jackson. Judge Noble was there with us that day, Breathitt County judge, and he was expressing appreciation. You could just see the teamwork, is my point. It wasn't about boundaries. It wasn't about who's going to necessarily pay for this. Because at the end of the day, we had to get this work done. We still have to get this work done. We have executed debris removal and oversight and inspection contracts. Another lesson learned from Western Kentucky is get on it quickly. And of course, if there was a distinction between Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, any distinction, you can't compare disasters, but you can learn from them. And one of the lessons, of course, was in Western Kentucky, it was in the winter. Well, Eastern Kentucky, we're dealing with hot weather and we're dealing with water conditions. And so both of which just exacerbate the challenge that we're addressing. So in our debris removal contract, cities and counties have been offered the opportunity to piggyback on the state contract through a mutual aid agreement. 11 of the 13 counties covered by the disaster declaration have accepted the offer. Magoffin and Wolf have not, but they had significantly less debris to address. Several cities have also joined in the contract, including Whitesburg, Jenkins, Fleming, Neon, and Heinemann. Now these slides, and again, some of you all have seen this, these are representative samples. Corbett did a great job yesterday of describing the conditions of Highway 15 when he was going to work from Hazard to Jackson, and he couldn't, and he'd been traveling that for 27 years and never seen water over Highway 15, and he couldn't get to it when he couldn't get to the office and he didn't have cell service. But this is just an example of a washed out road condition in District 12. This is just a shot at the Jackson office when Representative Santoro and Senator Higdon were with us that day. Judge Noble's there. Corbett Caudle is in the red shirt, the checkered shirt. Beside him is Judge Noble, Breathitt County judge, and James Ballinger. And what we were doing, we were looking at the road conditions, the roads that had been made reasonably passable, both state roads and county roads there. This is the Chavies School Road in Perry County. It's a collapsed bridge over Grapevine Creek. To get a sense of the numbers, we have inventoried 1,100. Well, I had 1,098. So let's say 1,100. By now, we've inventoried 1,100. I know, in the disaster zone, and KYT has inspected all of them. So far, 56 have been identified for requiring structures have been identified for requiring replacement, and 52 others have been identified as needing repair. Now that's as of Sunday. That number is now, that was a little over 100. That number's now, we're up to 145 bridges that have been identified for needing repair or replacement. We've already begun the process of replacing an initial group of 11 under emergency condition contracts in Knott, Letcher, Perry, and Pike, using existing, as I said, and emergency contracts. In 9 of the 11 of those 11 cases, residents lost motor vehicle access to their homes when the bridges were knocked out. And in those cases, we are building temporary crossings called on-site diversions using culvert pipes that are covered with the hard-packed roadbed. That picture at Chavy's, that's going to a community center. It used to be a school. You can see it in the background there. Yep, Representative. That's right, Representative. That's yours. That's right. Yes, sir. That's your church. Yes, sir. So you know it well. You may want to. We're. That's been a. That photo is one of the most challenging, I would say. So our next slides are just some that show some of the conditions on Friday, right after the 28th, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Our crews cleared at least 153 landslides and mudslides, and unclogged dozens of culverts and drain structures so far. Again, these are just illustrations of how destructive, as Corbett Caudle said yesterday. I think I shared with y'all, he said when I talked to him on that Thursday morning and he was trying to get to the Jackson office, he's a guy that doesn't mince words, and he has an economy of language and words. He doesn't talk too much. And he said, well, Jim, I said, what's it like? He said, it's catastrophic. And this, of course, these slides just show. And you know, we live in a overnight delivery world. We know that. Amazon comes to the door almost the next day, or UPS or FedEx, any delivery service. And in our world today, there's an expectation that, you know, we can flip a switch almost and get things done. But these are challenging infrastructure projects. This slide just shows the beginning of debris removal in downtown Whitesburg. That would have been now, let's see, sometimes I'm losing count of time. So this would have been a little over a week ago. We had 9 companies that bid on the debris contract that we turned around in 48 hours. The low bidder was a company named Ashbrit, which is a national company that has quite a bit of experience in this kind of work. Other bidders as well had experience. Through Sunday of the last Sunday, Ashbrit trucks had removed 911 loads of debris in Breathitt, Floyd, Knott, Letcher, Perry, and Pike. And a second company, the company's name is ER Assist. By the way, that grapple arm on that's one of those double, what do we call those? Double dumps? What do they call them? Well, I got it right. Y'all see it with they're Senator Turner, you've seen a lot of them. Representative Fugate, you've seen a lot of them. Those are what are coming in. That was in Whitesburg. Anyway, ER Assist is working collaboratively with Ashbrit in order to monitor and get a good count or get an accurate count on the debris removal. That's required by FEMA and to ensure that we get reimbursement from FEMA. The idea is that, of course, that no one wants to leave any money on the table by failing to follow FEMA's rules and protocols on documentation and auditing. But again, a bit of a lesson learned from Western Kentucky is you can both follow the proper protocols and not waste time in getting work done. I want y'all, one thing important to bear in mind is that FEMA does not provide funding up front. FEMA reimburses a percentage of eligible expenditures. This just to illustrate the condition that we had in Breathitt County at the property damage at the District 10 sign shop in Breathitt. And in the next slide shows the condition in Letcher County, our maintenance facility there, on Friday morning. You see that this was a couple of days later when the water had receded, and we're trying to get folks back to where they had a location to work out of. This is partially cleaned up. Again, the maintenance facility in Letcher County, but still a lot of work to do. Now, I mentioned earlier that we purchased outright for the Western Kentucky tornadoes. We purchased 200 travel trailers. We utilized 120. We had 80 remaining. Within 2 days of the flood, we were already hauling travel trailers from Western Kentucky to Eastern Kentucky, to locations in Eastern Kentucky, which this illustrates, as of August the 2nd. Now, that effort's being led by our chief district engineer in District 1, whose name is Kyle Pote. Kyle led the effort in Western Kentucky. So with his knowledge and his experience and lessons learned and best practice, just knew what he was doing, he helped us along with others to manage this haul and install mission. So Kyle's been on the ground. He also flew 2 days ago. He also flew down with his team of 2 others to inspect trailers in Louisiana from Hurricane Ida. They have 4,200 trailers that they have used there. And we identified 63 that we could move immediately. And Governor Edwards called Governor Beshear to say that he was very supportive of I don't know exactly the commercial conditions. There is some suggestion that they may be gifted, but we have to work that through FEMA. So the bottom line on it, though, is that we're getting cooperation and quick cooperation, and we will be able to move those trailers without a cost premium. We paid about $8 to $10 million for the 200 trailers for the tornado. Okay, now what you all see here are just where we installed. We had about 25 at Jenny Wiley, 30 at Mind Made Adventure Park, just outside of Hindman, just across from the Sportsplex. And then Carr Creek Campground in Perry. We're trying to find additional locations for Jackson and for Letcher. And the Crockett'sville Campground and in Booneville. So altogether, this is an image at trailers at Jenny Wiley State Park. Gives you an indication of what the kind of trailers that are available. I think I've gone through everything we had. And we don't have Corbett here today to give his story. But we're happy to take any questions or any comments that y'all might have for
Thank
us
you.
again today.
Representative Fugate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary Gray, for all that you've done for East Kentucky. So on the night that all the rain was coming, I think it was 2:25 in the morning, I text Chief Advisor Rocky Atkins, and I asked him to call me in the morning or whenever he could. And 5 minutes later, he called me, and he began to. We talked about we knew it was going to be bad because of all in my holler. I've never seen water come up in my yard, and it was a river. I mean, it was a river, and so. Anyway, I appreciate Rocky Atkins, Jeremy Slinker, transportation people, all that's been done. So many people have come. It's hard to thank everybody for everything that's been done. But just the roads and everything. There's two things that I'd like to just mention to you. And I've talked to Corbett, who does an awesome job, and I've worked with him since I've been in Frankfort. He's an awesome guy. Kentucky 451 is a big concern because of the amount of people that lives. So 451's cut off on each end, and there's only one other road there's a small back road that people can go through, but it's not really a good road. So I've been getting phone calls just about that 451. If you could just give me an update on that road of when it may be one end of it be open so they can travel back and forth. Okay. And then the second thing is, there's a road in Breathitt County, Kentucky 1110. I think that needs, if you can just get me an update on that road.
Okay.
And then the airport road, the President of the United States was there in East Kentucky, but I think they took him off the back way from the airport because
hazard.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
That road, and they've been working on it. Almost 24 hours a day, I guess. But in our last budget, we got there's a new road that is set to be built in the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know if there's any way we could bump up the construction money on that project, just because there's 200 and some homes up on top of the hill besides the airport. Right. And I saw one day a tanker truck trying to get fuel up there, but he was stopped on the road because he couldn't get around. Right. He couldn't get around up there. So that's just the three issues that I'm not griping. I promise I'm not griping at all. I'm thanking you for all that you've done. But I think those are three issues, those three roads in my district that's important for people to be able to get in and out of their homes. And I was a state trooper for 22 years. I've never seen anything like we've witnessed the last 3 weeks. It's a tough time, but I think that we're seeing not only outside people coming in to help, but the mountain people we'll be all right. It's going to take us a while, but that we're a strong people in the mountains, and we're digging out each other and helping each other. We've got 52 people sheltered at our church still. They're in Hazard, and is there like the travel trailers? I've got one guy that had a double wide. It was washed away. He got an old trailer, and he was told this week that he had mold in that camper trailer that he's living in. Could FEMA let him move one of those travel trailers on his own property, or do those travel trailers have to be on like a state park or property that's owned by the government?
We had the same issues in Western Kentucky, and we worked through them, not one at a time, but on the specific cases. Okay. And where a trailer can be, don't hold me to this entirely, but I'm believing, and this is more in Jeremy Slinker, in Director Slinker's lane, but what I know is that where a trailer can be placed near to where a home was originally, it is permissible. Now I'm thinking, but let me get back to you on that. Okay. All right.
And most of this,
because there's a number of sites that are like that.
Yes, sir. and most of the area that flooded has never been flooded before. You know, and someone was asking about building dams and all that, and I told him, I said, there's not a dam in the world that would have stopped 11 inches of rain. When it gets in them hollers, it's coming out. And so, I mean, it's nothing that anybody could do to prevent it, I don't think. So, anyway, I appreciate all that you all have done, and, if we can do something to help speed something up or whatever, we'll do anything we can do to help you all do that. So, I appreciate you very much.
And we'll get back to you on
Yes, sir.
on those on the
451.
451 1110
1110. Yep.
and the hazard and the road to the airport.
Yes, sir.
Right. We may be at, there may be other projects that have similar opportunities while we're here to make some adjustments. The Panbowl Lake, for example, in Jackson, that's is a real challenge for us, and we may need to make some adjustments in the schedule there too.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Hayward.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciated yesterday's conversation too with Corbett, and thank you all for everything that you're doing. I think whenever we get into government, we don't always realize what we're going to have to face, and it takes a lot of courage and diligence to be able to do this. And so thank you all, because I know you all have been working around the clock, and so thank you to your all's employees too with boots on the ground. I have two questions for you all, and one is, I think a lot of conversations have come up about like bridges going into hollers and how some of those are privately owned and they've been washed away. And so how can you explain a little bit of the process on that? Is that something that FEMA will reimburse to them? Is that something that the state will be taking care of?
There, Representative Haven, as we speak, conversations are underway regarding these issues, the private structures. There was a conversation yesterday with West Virginia on the ways that West Virginia had dealt with a similar flooding conditions and similar geography, of course, and what they'd done. I'll say that the work is being done to examine how and what we can do. As you know, the Constitution prohibits the transportation or road fund from paying for any private structures. That said, FEMA has had situations or conditions similar to this in the past where I believe the language at PA, is that public assistance, Mike, or private? Public or private assistance? Public assistance aid, where it can be applied for temporary, right? For temporary structures. Now, question would be, what's a temporary structure? What's a habitable residence? And those are the issues that we're working through. But rest assured that this is a project. We think of these private structures as a significant mission that we're underway with.
Okay.
We have to, again, it's whose lane is it in, who's going to be responsible for payment, or who can pay perhaps or fund payments for these private structures.
Thank you. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I think in times of need, people don't think of, well, who, they just want it fixed. And
exactly.
So,
Yes.
I know that's a lot for our good people of Eastern Kentucky too to have to deal with. But thank you for that.
So that's why we're working vigorously vigorously on that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then the other question, and it might be more of a question for the rumor of that we'll be going into special session to help with this. But I think that in Eastern Kentucky, infrastructure is such a big deal. And I think that as we're going through this, a lot of it should be an investment rather than just patchwork. And so I guess as you all are going through this as the transportation cabinet, how are you all looking at it? Is it something that you all are trying to do just to get through to the next day? Because I think in reality too, Representative Fugate was saying they need a road open, and so you're trying to do things as quick as you can to make sure to take care of our good people in Eastern Kentucky. But, sometimes I know that in road projects, we just patchwork things or, kind of try to go things as fast as we can. And so kind of what are your thoughts on that of just, is this investment or is this just trying to get through to make sure people are taken care of as quickly as possible?
Yeah. I think it's not a either or answer there. It's both and. The governor has said that we want to build back, where we can, build back better. Take this opportunity, as regrettable and sad and distressful as it is. Take this as an opportunity for improvement. Where and what can we do in the rebuilding effort? What opportunities for locations, for example? These are all issues that are being considered. Now, again, some of that is outside of my lane in terms of where where we could find residential opportunities. That's what others are looking at, examining. The governor's very much committed to examining these opportunities. But the operative language is improvement, where we can. How can we take the lessons from this and translate them into improvement opportunities?
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Representative Stevenson, you want to say anything? You did yesterday. It was heart-touching. Senator Turner.
I again reiterate everything I said yesterday, Mr. Secretary, and appreciate what your group is doing. As you said, we met there. You took a lot. You got pictures from Whitesburg, and those pictures show just pretty much dry garbage or things out on the street. There's a significant difference in where I'm at, and it's got that gray mud in every building of anywhere from 6 inches to a foot thick. And when I saw those 3 little children up there with their parents pushing out of the back of the building and wading in it a foot, is there some way that the transportation can get that out of the creeks and widen those rivers up somewhat? That I know there's some work already going on with that. Are we going to try to make a plan long term to even make those branches and rivers that come out of there somewhat a little bigger and wider to carry more water? I know they're going to have to build the houses back in different places, those that are totally gone. But is there going to be some kind of long-term plan we need to be thinking about on that respect?
Well, again, this is similar to that we're working on parallel tracks. Those, I know when we were talking in Neon, and the mayor was asking about the very same issue. The first thing that we're tackling is stream debris removal, and that we're working with their energy and environmental cabinet to ensure that what we're doing is appropriate, but we're working, I would characterize it as very intentionally and aggressively. We're not wasting time on trying to examine these opportunities that we can, where we can. Now, the role of transportation may not be to actually do the work in the stream, but there's certainly an awareness that there's work that may need to be done, just like you're describing and like I saw. James, you want to, or Mike, you all want to add to what I've said?
I think you did well.
Okay.
I saw a number of pictures with roads that are closed, and that's been an issue. Do we have as you said, I've got my own equipment over there, and today makes the 9th day that it's over there and been working, and I plan on going back tomorrow, well, Friday, and working. If we don't go in special session next week, I'll be there all week. And one of the other senators told me in the passing today, he's going to bring some equipment, I think, to Perry County to help. So the thing I hear the most, though, that's kind of out of this thing is that FEMA is not offering these people a lot of money. And I hope the press picks up on that and goes and investigates and takes pictures of these people's place. I know there's an appeal process that's somewhat working. They had the meeting in Pike County, and I know transportation is not directly involved in that, but you all are, through the media, helping tell the people how to get help.
That's right.
Yeah. So I hope we'll continue, everybody working on that. I personally do tell them when somebody comes to me, and they're coming to me, they're in Fleming Neon,
Yeah.
how to help themselves. And I hope everybody, the media especially, goes and looks at what these people are getting offered, $1,200 or $200 by FEMA, which is a disgrace to what they lost. And I hope that the governor and everybody picks up on that. Thank you very much for the work, and I look forward to continue to working in Fleming Neon until we get it cleaned up and working with your department
Thank
as
you,
long
Senator.
as it needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I know you said he's got his own equipment there. I think everyone's pitching in, helping. Is our contractors, anybody, I always hear these highway contractors. I think they're great people.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Well, the highway contractors and the consulting engineers that are familiar with the region, with the towns and the cities and the counties, were first to step up to offer help to the cabinet where the opportunities were, and even volunteering. So this happened in Western Kentucky as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't want they didn't want to be praised publicly for what they were doing, but they were right there with their crews because, as they said, these are our people. And many of their employees were similarly lost possessions or they were flooded, and they wanted to help, and they did. Now, some of them are now under contract for some of the remediation work or the repair work and the rebuild work.
It's just good to know.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, they were right
anyone
there.
else? Senator Higdon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again, Mr. Secretary. I guess, I feel that I'd like to thank your team, because it does take a team, and Commissioner Lewis and Mike Hancock and James Ballinger, Kenny Bishop. And Kenny, if anybody here doesn't have Kenny's phone number, I know Kenny's got it. Watch him; he'll put it right up there. That's a good one to have in your pocket, because he can direct you to wherever you need to go. And I've called him many a time, day and night. He's on call 24/7.
He had two calls this morning before he got to Frankfurt.
But it wasn't me this time.
It wasn't you.
Typically it would be. And then you even brought the money lady, Robin Brewer, back in the back, and we appreciate what Robin does. And
I didn't know Robin was here, so I would have introduced her. Oh, okay.
she snuck in. She likes to keep a low profile. But I guess my question, Mr. Secretary, is there any cost estimates, ballpark yet? If I know the day we were there, the Perry County judge told us that he had 46 bridges out and about $25 million. And that was just a ballpark figure, I think, and that number's probably gone up since that day we met. But just curious if you had a ballpark figure of.
I come out of a career in the construction industry, and the one thing I learned, Senator, was not to speak prematurely about an estimate. It would be whatever number I had in mind it would probably be double, and it would be too speculatively for me to reveal the number that I had in mind. I think it's just gonna be significant. But that's what, Executive Cabinet Secretary John Hicks today and State Budget Director is working to help the governor compile, from all the different areas of state government that are involved in the recovery efforts. So to pull we'd say in the construction business, the main summary together, you've got to really pull from every area. Of course, transportation's one of them, and we've got a significant piece of it. But just yesterday, for example, Josh Rogers, who's leads our maintenance effort and is a bridge inspector and also he was describing this spreadsheet that has been developed, which everyone can work from. But just think about the number is staggering, that there are 160,000 issues that are being evaluated. That doesn't mean that there's 160,000 structures necessarily, but issues, where one structure may have several issues associated with it. So you can just imagine, Josh was just saying, this was a guy that helped me a lot on the Brent Spence Bridge. He was there inspecting the bridge when we had the fire, and he's now head of maintenance for the cabinet for the Department of Highways. But he was just describing the enormity of the challenge of the assessments, and then estimating from those assessments and evaluations, investigations. Okay.
Thank you.
That's a
Mr.
long
Chairman.
way around saying no, I don't have a
Okay.
number.
Go
Well,
ahead.
And as we go into special session and
Yeah.
we appropriate money, I think that we will get some reimbursements back from FEMA as we go forward. But this is money to get her done now, and I know that's very important. To change the subject,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, just starting to hear some talk back about some of the grants that have been applied for. I know raised grants. I got from a call the other day from Jefferson County that the
Right.
9th Street grant that they applied for in Broadway.
And Broadway, right.
That Representative Santoro and I put money in the budget to match, and that was, I think, part of the beauty of them getting that grant. They had
Yeah.
that match money in there. Sir, did we receive any other good news on grants?
We received some news on transit. I think it was seven transit agencies. Most of them were community action councils that received altogether about $3 million. And we turned in our application for the Bridges of National Significance funding, or the Bridge Investment Program. It's called both of those names, but anyway, that's for the Brent Spence. It's $1.66 billion. It's the second application that we've made for a bucket of funding. Our first one was the same amount for the mega projects, $1.66 billion, and this one is $1.66 billion as well. Representative Roberts, I know you have an interest in that one, and Representative Santoro,
A little bit.
and others.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Let's hope we're successful
So
on all
those
these.
are sir.
We want to be successful on all this.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say those are the ones that are top of mind right now. Have I forgotten anything, Mike? Those top of mind. Okay.
One other question, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
Any idea on the time frame when those awards will be announced?
We're thinking that the bridge investment program which is the last one. This again is speculation, but there's been some comment that one may be the first award, and we were expecting if these notifications were to fit our schedule for the Brent Spence, which is to have a groundbreaking on it in the fall of next year, then we would get notification soon. That would mean in the next quarter, September, October, November.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'll
good.
say
And I
that
promise I'll
every
stop.
time I see the Secretary of Transportation, I say, Mr. Secretary, just 3 words: Brent Spence Bridge.
BBB.
Now that I don't want anybody in the rest of the state to think that we're not thinking about the rest of the state too. These things are all about timing and pacing, and the Brent Spence is the poster child for that for the bipartisan infrastructure law.
And you mentioned you also have a grant in for the other mega projects. You have 2 grants?
We have 2 grants. We have 2 applications for the Brent Spence.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Next year, we're going to be looking, this is not a one year situation. This is multi-year. Our funding from the bipartisan infrastructure law is committed for 5 years. It's given us something like $210 million a year more in total funding from the federal program.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Turner has something else.
Just to clarify the record, I think it was my first meeting with the governor, Rocky Adkins, and a group of us, that the governor was thanked for, at that time, telling all the mayors, county judges, the federal had just declared it was a disaster that qualified for FEMA, that they could then hire local employees, businesses, to begin the cleanup and work with FEMA then afterwards to get the building process taken care of. So I thank the governor at that meeting. And it was real early on, soon after the federal government declared it a disaster qualifying for FEMA.
Thank you. I just want, when myself and Senator Higdon were there's a lot of vehicles in these creeks and everything. You're going to have to do something. These people don't have to pay for their registration renewals or anything. I mean, think about it. Come on, these guys lost their vehicles. So you might have to do something on an emergency order or something, because they're going to get a bill in the mail. You owe us your taxes now. So just think about
Right.
that.
Thanks.
But anyway,
Mr. Chairman.
anyone else? If not, thank you for the presentation. I know you have another commitment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all again. I didn't do what I say I always wanted to do when I come before you all, and start by saying to everyone here, thank you for your public service. Thank you all.
Next on the agenda is capital budget. I guess Robin's going to come up on this one. She's becoming a regular here. And Pat Gruen, just a brief overview real quick on our capital budget real quick. If you would just be seated. We know who you are, but go ahead and for the record, say who you are and then proceed. Turn your mic on.
Work with me. All right, that's better. I always have trouble with that. My name is Robin Brewer. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Budget and Fiscal Management in the Transportation Cabinet. I thought I would just briefly kind of go through kind of the process that we go through in our cabinet when we're developing our capital plan, because I know that was part of the question that the committee wanted to just learn a little bit more about. And then after I talk about that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat, to talk more about the condition of our facilities statewide, how we try to maintain those to the best of our ability. So, as y'all know, every agency is required by, I think it's KRS 7A, to submit a 6-year capital plan every 2 years. So we will be beginning that process here in a few short months in January. My office is responsible for sending out communication to everybody in the cabinet, basically requesting them to send in whatever capital project needs they may have. We send out actually a template for them to fill out so that we get a certain amount of information that's consistent among areas. We also provide them the information in the statute that explains or defines what a capital project actually is, so they understand when they're requesting what defines a capital project. So once we receive all that information back from each of the districts and all the other areas in the cabinet, we compile all that information together. Now, probably 95% of the requests that we receive are obviously for structures, facilities, whether it's a maintenance garage, district office, salt structure. We do also have occasionally some IT projects in there. We might have an aircraft request. We may even have like a request for some equipment. But again, by and large, the majority of them are for facilities. So once we get all that information together, we then work with Pat's office extensively to get more information about each of those projects, to get good cost estimates for those projects. When we receive all that information from the districts and others, we also ask them what biennium they feel like they need it in. Because again, this is a 6-year capital plan. It's going to have 3 biennium in it. So again, that's something Pat's folks look at. They're looking at the biennium that it was requested. Is that really the biennium it's needed in? Does it need to be sooner than that? Does it need to be pushed out farther? And he's also just looking at, do these projects truly need to be done? Just if someone's requested it, Pat's area is responsible for maintaining those facilities, along with all the other facilities across the state. So they know what work has been done to those buildings. They know the condition that they're currently in. So their office, we rely on them heavily for input on trying to prioritize once we have all these requests and we determine, okay, this is the list that we're going to be working with. Now, how do we determine what our priorities are? Because we do have to rank those before we actually submit the capital plan. So once we've consulted with Pat and gotten all the information from him, then we work with cabinet leadership, and then they ultimately decide, what truly gets put into the capital plan, what biennium, and whether or not the ranking needs to be adjusted. We have to submit that into the capital plan system by April 15th. And that's in statute. And then in a few months after that, when we start working on our biennial budget request, that's when we have another look at it. We get to look at what we submitted in that capital plan. We need to see, has anything happened in the last 4 to 5 months that needs to change this capital plan now that we weren't aware of? So it's good that we get another opportunity to kind of assess our needs. And then once we start working on our biennial budget request, the focus really becomes the upcoming biennium in that 6-year capital plan. And we look at, do we still think we need all of these projects? When we do the biennial budget, obviously, first and foremost, we have to provide funding for all the things that we have to pay for to continue operations. And then whatever money we have left goes for additional budget requests or ABRs. So capital ABRs, and then we also have operating ABRs. And so, cabinet leadership has the tough decision to make at that point on what can we afford to do, and how are we going to prioritize both the capital requests versus the operating requests. So that's sort of how the process comes together for when we put what we actually put into our biennial budget requests. And again, a lot of thought gets put into this. It's based on information that we're provided from our support services area and people on the ground, and know what the condition of those facilities are across the state. And that's pretty much it. And I don't think I need to probably talk about the rest of the process. You all are very, very familiar with how the budget process works after that.
I think we're all familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pat. You want to chime in some?
All right. Yes. The thing Robin was talking about, when we get together and meet and talk about our projects and stuff, the only thing that will be different is if we have a safety issue with any of our buildings, like District 6, we had a major safety issue up there. So it got moved. It got pushed forward. And I think we pushed some back, I think is what we did. in the 6-year plan. But that was necessary because we had a situation there we needed to correct. So she kind of took my thunder on the first paragraph I had.
Sorry.
That's all right. Like I said, we do have 1,250 buildings that we oversee, maintain, and our guys are in there like all the time, maintaining the facilities, be it HVAC, plumbing, whatever it is, we're there. Yesterday I spent all day in Eastern Kentucky with state risks trying to figure out what that situation is going to end up being. So it's catastrophic down there.
You know how many facilities were affected by the floods? I mean, do you have 5, 6, 10?
Well, the two main ones is Letcher and Breathitt.
Okay.
And that's where I met with state risk yesterday, basically all day. And they were telling me, what they can cover, what they won't cover. And then they would tell me this is the process of it. And me and Robin have been talking quite a bit about the different processes that they have, because I'm kind of unfamiliar with that territory right now, but I'm learning it.
Good. I'm the reason I believe it or not, I come to some of your facilities, okay, and I look around, and you have to have good working conditions, We're not 50 years ago. Come on, this is a new century. We need to get you people. We finally got some pay increases. We need good working conditions. We have highway workers that are going in some of these barns that I looked at and thinking, come on, man, it's budget. I know it's dollars and cents. You need to provide for your family, but I also want you to have something good place to come to every day and feel good about it.
Totally agree with you.
You all do a great job. I just want maybe in the next budget cycle or two, maybe we can, never know how funding goes. Maybe they can start looking, these buildings matter to you all and when you go to work. And it does in the trucks and the equipment, myself and Senator Higdon saw the equipment down there coming from all over. So that's all. I just wanted to bring that out. Anyone else have anything? Yes, sir. Representative McPherson.
I'd like to regress a little bit from yesterday's presentation about the $1.7 billion budget. Have you all done any work on how much the inflation? I know specific inflation is food is maybe 12 or 13%, something the overall inflation rate's about 8.5 or 9%. What do you see in the construction industry? In other words, if we're setting a budget and we're going up 3%, how much is the inflationary part of construction cost because of fuel and because of oil and because of everything and combined in this particular in the construction business? How much are we looking at? Are we looking at 10%, 12%? What do you think?
Well, no, sir. I think it's more like 35%.
Exactly. That's what
and it's going up every day.
Yeah.
That's only if you can get the building packages because they're back ordered. So we have problems with that as well. But 35% is conservative. I think it's going to continue to grow, supply and demand basically. But I think that would be a good safe number. It won't be any less. It won't be any less.
I'm a real estate appraiser by trade, so I understand that.
Okay, you
the
understand.
Construction cost, and that's what I'm saying. If we're going up 3% or something on a budget,
Right.
we're like he says, we can't cover the ones we're covering, much less.
You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all. We have some challenges, and I don't ask representatives what they're feeling about what happened in Eastern Kentucky. I agree. We got problems, and I think the General Assembly is going to be with you all to fix these roads
Appreciate
and
that.
highways and everything down there. So I just want to say thank you. If there's no other matter, I'll take the motion to adjourn. We have a second, I hope. So moved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, you said. He's a good guy. He is a really good guy. Right. Well, like I said, he was a little bit like me. motions. I said, yeah, he does, because he